listeners. Welcome to Shit That Goes On in Our Heads, the podcast where we normalize conversations around mental health.
That's right. I'm Dirty Skittles, and alongside my amazing co-host, G-Rex, we're here to share real stories and tips from our incredible guests.
Each episode, we deep dive into struggles and triumphs of mental health, offering practical advice and heartfelt support.
Because no one should feel alone in their journey. Join us as we break the stigma and build community of understanding and compassion.
Tune in and let's start talking about the shit that goes on in our heads. 3, 2, 1.
Well, welcome back to another episode, Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. I am Dirty Skittles, and I am joined with my fantastic co-host,
G-Rex.
And we have a special guest today, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Hey, I am doing pretty well. It's been a wonderful Saturday. So it's been very nice and sunny here. It's like 25 Celsius. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, 80 something, close to that. So it's been really nice, which has been a great time. We had the kids out this morning running around and keeping us busy.
Nice. Do they get along? I know they're young, but do they get along?
I think they tolerate each other. They have moments of where like this is the cutest thing ever. And then you have moments where one's trying to take the other one down. So it's just a game.
It's survival of the fittest.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So right now our oldest is going through a little sickness and then the youngest is teething. So they're just switching off who's getting angry. And the youngest, she's got a personality on her. So she's very, very adamant about everything. Cute.
Are they both girls?
No. So the oldest is a boy.
That's like perfect, right? Isn't that like the dream? One boy, one girl.
Yeah, I think they call it the $1 million family. We're missing the $1 million, but it's still the family that matters, right?
Yeah. I love that though. That's pretty cool. Man, so what time did your morning start?
Today we slept until about 6:30 and then get up and take care of the kids, feed them, all that good stuff. Just a pretty standard morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you tag team them? Just them being so close in age, or can you do it all on your own?
It's great to have the tag team and the help. So right now with the wife, Jenna, she's not home for most of the week, and then she's back on the weekends just with work and stuff. So I'm single dadding it through the week right now and work, taking the kids to daycare, picking them up, doing dinner, doing everything. So doing everything while she's away working, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So it's a bit of a combined effort, but a lot of it's on me right now.
Yeah, that can get tough. Mm-hmm. Do you set aside time for yourself during it all?
So my time alone is usually in the car for about an hour. And then usually when they go to sleep, it's about 7:00 at night. So I get about 2 hours before I decide that I should go back. Yeah, I should go to bed, get ready for the next day. So it's very busy.
Yeah. I can relate. I feel like the time I get to myself is like when everybody else is sleeping. Mm-hmm. So it's either like 4 a.m. or 9 or 10 when I'm debating. Do I start Bridgerton now or do I just go to sleep? Because I don't know how long I'll stay awake for.
No, it's definitely a struggle trying to find that alone time for yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. Tell me what your fun things are to do when you do have that alone time for yourself.
Right now, just because usually like the day gets pretty stressful. So it's like just like one of those, a lot of the time I just end up like I got a plan of things that I want to do. I want to clean up whatever, do whatever. I've got my planner set out. But a lot of the time it's just, I'll put them down and then I'll go and sit on the couch and just decompress for like a good like half hour and like literally have something on the TV, but I'm like paying attention to nothing. I'm just literally decompressing, just especially when they're having a bad night. So mostly it. And then lately it's just been watching whatever's on TV or cleaning up. But yeah, not a whole lot of free time for hobbies at the moment.
Yeah. What about you, G-Rex? How do you manage
How do I manage my downtime? Lately just been like vegging in front of the TV. I also do a lot of journaling. So when I have some downtime, I write in my journal in hopes that it will help me finish my book.
Why do you chuckle? Why do you giggle?
Why do I giggle? Because like I have that like first part of the book written, right? Where all this shit started to go down. At the end part of the book written where everything got better. It's that middle part, trauma block. And like every now and then, like a little idea will like pop in my head and be like, oh, I should write this down. So one of the ways that I journal now is I talk into my phone and I record it because I find that it's a lot more fluid that way. And then I just like transcribe it out. But it's still a trauma block. I've been trying to write this for a year now. Eventually it's going to come to me and I can finish it. But the other thing I do for decompressing, and now that it's summer, I will go outside. I will enjoy the green grass, see the animals, look at my flowers, pray that my tomatoes are going to grow, all those things.
It's important to get outside.
It is.
To touch grass, as I would say.
It is. It's very important. And like, I love where we live. Like, we couldn't do this when we lived in Florida because it was so ungodly hot all the time. But in upstate New York, I get all 4 seasons. So the only time I really don't go outside is in winter because it is ass cold. It is so cold and icy and dangerous and still pretty up here, but it's not like spring, summer, and fall. Like fall is my absolute favorite time of the year here. So
it's usually my favorite as well.
Because it's stunning, right? It's absolutely beautiful. I grew up in Colorado and I saw fall, but I didn't realize how beautiful it was until I moved up here. It is fantastical.
Where are you located?
I am just outside of Ottawa in Ontario. So I get probably pretty similar weather, all 4 seasons, winter, everything. We had a pretty mild winter. Now it's going to be a pretty hot summer, I think. So
yeah, I'm afraid of that too. But you know what? Thank God for air conditioning. Because we had that put in last year. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use it.
No, not at all.
No.
So do you think you're done now with the 2 kids, or do you think you'll have more?
Yeah, we're done. So it was
busy enough, I would imagine.
It's very busy. So we were like on the fence before, like, oh, we could have like another one if we really wanted. And then we ended up having a second one so close. And I was like, no more. Like, we're done. So yeah, I did what I had to do. And yeah, no more kids now. So that's it. Rolling the dice on the 2 of them. And we're going to
praying for the best.
Yeah, that's it. No.
I can relate to that statement so much. So praying for the best, the whole thing. Yeah, we have a 6-year-old. He's about to start 1st grade. And I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that even?
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like every milestone, it trips me out. Still feels like it was like, the first day we brought him home from the hospital. So
yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, no, I was just thinking when we were talking about like, what do we do in our spare time, whenever that is, and just vegging out on the couch. It took me a while. Like, I think it was actually not until I went to therapy to realize that it was okay to just veg. Like, you don't have to be productive every minute of every day. And that like giving yourself that time to just do whatever the hell you want that's just as valuable.
That is the best kind of self-love right there.
Just doing whatever the fuck.
Just do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I forgot we have a dad on the call.
Yeah.
Yeah. My this is, I don't know if I want to call it like a guilty pleasure. It's a confession time. What I've been doing with my spare time lately is I have been totally diving into building houses on The Sims. I don't want to play The Sims. I just want to build a house and decorate it and just zone out on that. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's like 10:30 at night. I'm building a house, putting in all the hacks and cheats and stuff for Sims 4. That's been my
years ago. I used to do that. Like when I was younger, I'd play Sims on the computer and just spend all the time building the houses and the families and just leaving them. Next one. Yeah. Just some weird compulsion, right? So I wasn't any good at like design or anything. So all my houses were just the same square setup with like the ugliest things that you could imagine. But was it?
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
I was talking to Valerie. She alluded to the fact that you guys had one of your kids in NICU.
Yeah. So our first one was, he was born early at 33 weeks, I want to say it was. And so he ended up spending 3 months in the hospital just because he would, a lot of times, like his oxygen levels would desaturate. And so they just kept him in there till he got strong enough. And they were doing all the tests to try and figure out why it was an ongoing basis. And eventually we got to go home, but yeah, he's definitely healthy now. But the journey in the NICU was quite an experience.
How stressful was that? Like, wow.
Yeah, so it was quite stressful because not only is it like your first kid and you obviously don't know what to expect to begin with. And then child, which it's supposed to be like the most magical moment. You'll be able to hold your child, all that stuff. He ends up coming early. And the first time I actually get to see him, he's hooked up to pretty much every single machine and being monitored constantly. Can't even really hold him. You can touch him, but you can't pick him up or anything. And definitely stressful in that aspect. And that's what the hardest part was not really being able to hold him a whole lot.
And were there other parents in the hospital that were going through the same thing? And were you able to gain support from them or maybe a social worker?
Yeah, there was quite a bit of other families. We were moved around quite a bit in the hospitals. It was through COVID time. So the first hospital we were at where he was born, we were allowed to both go in there at the same time and we could go see the baby. But usually we didn't really see any parents or interact with them much because COVID, masks, everything, all that great fun stuff that they did. And then we got moved from that hospital, went to another one. And in that one, they had even stricter policies, but they were supposed to be like a lighter unit. So only one of us could actually go into the hospital room at a time to go see the baby. Yeah. So, but he was like in a whole incubator and everything. So I'd take him out, change him every once in a while, give him a bath. And like, I think the hardest part is that you don't really feel connected. Like you don't get that connection right away. And that was hard. And it's just like, this is our baby and we're taking care of him and we're seeing him, but it doesn't feel like he's your baby at the same time. And it was just a weird out of body experience that you can't really put your thumb on. It's weird. And then we finally get sent to CHEO, which is in hospital, which is the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. So they do a lot of the stuff. And then there was like the long-term stay, and it was a much different setup where we were in a room with a couple other people, and we weren't as heavily monitored, but we were still quite monitored. And then we got to, we connected a bit with our neighbors that we had. And it was just a slow process until he finally got better enough, essentially. We did go through a ton of different tests, though, like every single day. And it was just kind of like you just entered like a fight or flight mode almost. And you dealt with day by day, each problem, each situation. And it was a lot to take in at the time. And I don't think either Jenna or I really was processing in the moments what was actually happening. We didn't even talk about it for quite a while. Till we sat down and decided that we would share a story. And then we actually started talking to each other. Actually, it's almost like 2 years from when it actually happened to when we were in a comfortable enough space to feel like opening up about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How long was he in the hospital for? Like, how long until you got to bring him home?
So we were about 3 months, 4 months, something like that. Jenna knows the numbers. Unfortunately, she's not here right now. But yeah, so it was between 3 and 4 months.
And every day, I would imagine it was something different. Like nobody prepares you.
No, so
for that.
You get told like every day the doctors would do like rounds, and they would come through and they would talk to you about what the plan is or what they're thinking of doing. And it's usually just for that week. So at the beginning of the week on like Monday, you might get an idea what they're planning to do. And then each day it was different. It was like, oh, we're going to go for an x-ray now, or we're going to go send him down to check out his tracks and stuff to make sure everything's moving through. We're going to make sure we're going to check this. We're going to do this test. And then they were always doing the CO2 test where they actually have to poke the heels of the babies. And they were doing that like every day. So there was a lot of tests, and it was daily almost, like the stuff that was happening.
So what did you guys do for your own mental health when you were going through all that?
In all honesty, I don't think we did a lot in the moment. We definitely could have done more to make it easier for us. But for the most part, we just had each other. We had our parents too to talk to a bit, but for the most part, no one really, like within our family, understood. And both Jenna and I are more reserved people, so we have a harder time actually connecting with people and talking to people. And so I just didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone else, really. Like I'm used to just keeping things inside mostly and trying to work through it. And then Jenna would always vent to me and so I could help her. But like a lot of the times we probably didn't do enough to actually help with our mental health at the time.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine, because as a parent, like, how are you not protective of your child, right? And I understand like being in a hospital and tests to figure out what's going on. Like I get why it's happening, but if you see your child like in pain, like would he cry when they would prick his heel? Like I don't think I could manage myself
every day. Yeah.
That's brutal.
And yeah, they do things to help. Like they would do, like there was like a sucrose type stuff they would give them that was supposed to help numb the pain or make their brain forget about it essentially. But you just understood what that meant. And it was just that.
Yeah.
But that would be every day. And then you get whatever tests or whatever other things going on. There was a lot of stuff. And I think
a lot of information, I'm sure.
Tons of information. You'd get that. I think when we were talking with Valerie, we described it as like, we described it a bit as fight or flight, but basically in that moment, you're not really focused on everything. You're only focused really on your kid and you're focused on getting them better. Yeah. And so you got blinders on and you're not really paying attention to all the little details, not all the other stuff outside of essentially the hospital room.
Yeah. And you're probably not thinking about yourselves.
No, not a whole lot. Like I think like I was definitely eating like crap every day. We weren't really cooking food at home because the way it worked was one of us would stay there overnight and then the other one would go home, get some much needed rest and sleep, whatnot. We also had our dog who was completely out of sorts because we weren't home during the day. And then, so I definitely wasn't taking care of myself physically. I don't think I was taking care of myself mentally. Like I wasn't doing anything when I was home. I was just going home to sleep essentially and then going right back to the hospital. So we were spending at least 12 hours in the hospital and then so like,
that's brutal.
And then the other one would, so either Jenna or I would sleep overnight kind of thing. So we'd spend the whole day at the hospital and then go back home. And most of the time you're just eating whatever hospital food's there or the fast food that they have in the hospital. Yeah. So
I was just about to make the joke like, so how is the food at the hospital?
It was all right.
It was right. It was edible.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. So in between, I guess basically I would imagine y'all were just seeing each other in passing and maybe at times together dealing with this. Once baby is home, how long would you say it took to decompress and then start talking about it with each other?
It's a good question. So I remember when we got home, so he came home and he had a feeding tube still. And luckily it didn't last long. I think we were like less than 2 weeks and it was finally out, but he had to be trained how to put it back in case it came out or anything like that. So that was fun. But our literal first night, we wake up in the middle of the night, he's screaming. We flipped the light on. He had pulled out the feeding tube. Well, not like 100%, but he pulled. And like, we're both like, fun. Just, we couldn't believe it. We're like, the first night, and like, we couldn't just have like a peaceful night kind of thing. So we ended up fixing that. And then from there, we didn't really have any hiccups really after that. He was slow to get to eating, to walking, to crawling, all that stuff. But eventually he got onto it all. And I think for us to feel decompressed, I think for the first couple of weeks, we were still stressed out because he still had that feeding tube. But I would say after a month or two, we finally started to, I think, come down off of the stress from the hospital. And it was hard because we would have a ton of follow-up appointments back at the hospital. And so we had to constantly bring him back and get constantly reminded of being at the hospital. And you had to get blood work taken lots and all the different specialists following up kind of thing. And those would bring back memories and those bring back like almost like PTSD type feelings. Yeah. And we would always be stressed out having to go back. I know Jenna was always really affected by that. And I was too, but not as much. We had to do sleep studies quite a few times at the hospital. So I don't know if you've ever seen a sleep study, but they put a shit ton of sensors all over the head and the body and all that stuff. And just on this little 3-month, 6-month-old baby, and you're doing like a full sleep study overnight and you're trying to get them to sleep. And
it's brutal.
Different. But so I think now we're obviously way better now, but I think it took like a good year before we were really like like de-stressed like from it. Like we weren't feeling the impacts as much.
So then you have your second child. I would imagine it just re-triggers everything all over again.
It did, yeah. That's correct. But she was different. Everything was 100% different with her. She was like the perfect pregnancy. She was the perfect being born, no complications, nothing. We're home in under 3 days kind of thing. Like she was the complete opposite. But she was stressing. Jenna was stressing for sure about that.
Yeah.
And with Liam, he was a complicated pregnancy. So he was going to be small to start. And then Jenna got hypertension and she had preeclampsia at the end. And that's why they ended up delivering him early. So she was worried the whole time she was pregnant with Lily that all this stuff was going to happen. But luckily, Lily was just perfectly fine and normal. And
yeah. I can't imagine because oh my gosh, you gotta have felt helpless with the first. So now you're having the second and all of the fear and anxiety that would go along with just if you are traumatized from something to be back in that kind of a setting. But it's fine. How does one's mind adjust to that?
It was a weird change. So we were obviously trying to stay positive the whole time. And obviously you start thinking, you start getting those barriers and everything starts being what happens if this happens again kind of thing. I'm in the military and I was supposed to go on, they wanted to send me on deployment when Jenna was supposed to be delivering the second baby. And I had to say no, I can't. I have to be home just in case.
Right.
Because if that happens again, I can't be away from that.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that was definitely a big thing. It's a lot of mental, it's a lot of stress. And it's hard to explain. It's hard to put a finger on it. But after about halfway through, maybe about 4 or 5, 6 months, everything was going smooth. And so it felt a lot better. Yeah, with Liam, it was early on, there was issues. So
yeah,
it wasn't like that.
And were your employers sympathetic with what you guys were going through? Or did they give you a hard time?
With Liam, because he was born so early, they were very helpful, very sympathetic. Yeah, so they gave me lots of time to take care of what I needed to take care of. It was definitely extenuating circumstances for them. So they let me do what I needed to do. And then I finally got to have some parental leave too after he came home. So that was nice. But with Lily, they were a little not sympathetic and pulling me off the deployment. So they made me jump through hoops through that. So I had to go through all the military stuff, all the mental health stuff to be I can't go. But yeah, so it is what it is. But
yeah.
Did you eventually start seeing a therapist, or did you just deal with all your mental stuff on your own?
We dealt with our mental stuff on our own. We never went and saw a therapist. Jen and I are usually quite open to each other. We talk about a lot of stuff. And I think that helps a lot. We can both vent or at least understand what each other's thinking. And we always have each other, which is super helpful.
Yeah, you're bonded now more so than you were before.
Definitely an experience.
Yeah, to both be going through the same thing, just maybe on differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
A mother versus father. But yeah, I can't imagine. And it's good that you have that communication.
Well, I was just going to ask, do you think it would have been different if Liam had been born outside of COVID?
Don't know, to be honest. The COVID didn't help within the fact of it made it difficult with having visitors, with basically both of us being there sometimes, with having to interact with a lot of people. It made it difficult in the sense that with all the restrictions, it just makes everything just a little bit harder. But it was the 2 hospitals, the first ones that we were at, because they were NICUs, we couldn't go in without the mask. We couldn't go in together or have anyone come see them early on. It wasn't until we got to CHIO where there was a little bit better with restrictions. But yeah, COVID didn't help for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned being there with their other parents there towards the second when they moved you from NICU.
Yeah. So there was other parents. So we had some roommates there. So they had a little son. He was cute, but they were from, I think not like Thunder Bay, but they were up from like Northern Ontario. So they were like a good 8 or 12 hours from home. So
wow.
Definitely a shock for them. They they definitely went through a lot for sure being there. But they knew they were going to have to be when he was born. So like they did x-rays and they're like, he's going to need to go to CHEO and get additional help once he's born.
Yeah.
So they actually knew. So it wasn't like a surprise to them when he was born that they had to go, but basically he got born and they got airlifted essentially, and that was it. But,
crazy.
Yeah, for them being so far from home.
So hard. Yeah. Right? Like, and does like Liam remember anything that happened, or?
He doesn't remember, but he has zero trust for doctors.
I can't imagine why.
He doesn't like doctors. He doesn't like anyone in a lab coat. Our doctor, she's usually like, our family doctor, she's usually plain clothes. She's really nice. And then Liam still knows, but she even did like push on his tummy or anything like that, he just loses it, just hates it there kind of thing. Yeah. Doesn't trust doctors or anyone in scrubs, I guess is the best way to put it. Because he's gotten lots of needles. So
yeah. For how long did those doctor's appointments happen once you were home?
So for the first, like, we had it like just regular doctors, like they go, I think like every 3 months for like immunizations and all that stuff. So he hates that. And then obviously checkups. And then we also had a pediatrician who saw them every couple of months. And then we also had specialist appointments with all the other types of doctors, like respirology, oncology, all the different doctors. And then they also want to do blood work more often. So it was,
he just remembers.
He just knows. I think we were probably one to two appointments a week kind of thing, just for like after being out of the hospital. So it was, let's say we were reminded of the hospital. It was every week. Like it wasn't just like a once a month kind of thing.
Yeah.
And do you do something special with him after those appointments to just either calm him down or let him know it's okay? And
so usually during the appointment, we try to keep it light and try to take his mind off of it, but he still ultimately knows where we are and what we're doing. And then with the appointments, like if there's anything that he needs to, like if he needs needles or anything like that, we should get the needle right away at the beginning of the appointment instead of at the end. So he doesn't have to sit there and worry about it the whole time. And then usually once that's done, like he starts to get a little bit better. Like a backwards thing, but it helps him a bit. And then afterwards, once in a while, we may take him to get some chicken nuggets and something like that. But
a small little treat.
Maybe now that it's summertime, it might be ice cream.
Yeah, because chicken nuggets and ice cream are the cure-all for everything, even as an adult.
It helps with me. I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think I can't imagine going through that. So for any parents that are out there now, is there any lessons you learned or anything that would be something for them to keep in mind should they find themselves in a similar situation?
Yeah, I like a couple of things I could think of right off the top of my head. One would be try to make friends with the people that you're with, or at least get people that are around you, especially in the hospital. I only made friends really with the one family, and we didn't talk to too many people. We were pretty withdrawn at the time, and it's really hard for us to break out of that bubble and out of that shell. But yeah, talk to whoever's around you, because chances are they're experiencing something very similar, or they can relate to it. And you guys can just bounce off each other and talk and get out to that. Talk to any family you can, relatives. It's hard, especially if they can't relate. It can be hard to talk to someone like that, but keeping people in the loop and talking to people. What else was I going to say? I had like two other things I was going to say right off the top of my head here. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, so talk to people. Basically, you're your child's advocate. So a lot of the times there can be a lot of testing. There can be a lot of things that they're doing. But if you know it's too much for your child, like you got to tell them. We had an experience where basically Liam ended up becoming quite lifeless. And I think it's just they end up taking way too much blood, like a couple days in a row. And he was just like white as a ghost. And you need to get like a blood transfusion essentially to get him back to normal. So understanding the limits and understanding your child's advocate and you can say no. You can be like, no, he needs a break. Like, you can't do this. That's something else. And then if you don't understand something, question it.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. It's really hard in the moment to get your head on straight, and it's really hard to be moving forward. And it's very important to be able to step back.
Yeah.
And like handle your emotions inside and emotions outside too.
Yeah. Wow.
See, these are good lessons for you if anything ever was to happen to Nugget.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. My mom she's our family nurse, and I could only imagine that was one of the things I was going to ask, but I felt like it might have been a silly question. Like, was there not anybody there at the hospital for you and your wife to advocate for you or to talk about or translate even like what is happening? And
for the most part, they're pretty good at talking to you. They can, a couple of doctors are very doctory and talk very doctory, and you're like, I don't know what you're saying. A lot of the time you would like just get that, like, I think I said earlier with the blinders, and you're just, you're not really taking the information in, and you're not really understanding what's happening. And it's not until afterwards that you start thinking about it. But getting that moment of getting them to stop and tell you what's actually happening and being very plain with you is super important. I think like every once in a while we would see like a girl that would come by, and she was, I forget what the team was called that she was, but she was basically just like a social worker almost. And she could go and talk to you if you needed to talk or anything like that. But other than that, there wasn't I think there was like some sort of chapel service that they had. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of.
Like a program or something. Yeah, because that's exactly what I would go to first. But she's in that industry, so she would be my what the fuck is happening person.
We were, when we were in GEO, we were in a room with, it was one nurse and then the three of us. So there was us and one other family and another girl that's been there for a long time. And so that nurse that would be on there every day, you get used to seeing them almost every other day or every week kind of thing. And you could actually talk to them and they keep up with them, and they would explain things a little more in depth to you than the doctors might. And so that was super helpful. So we did have that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of stuff that I'm just,
so helpful to like other listeners that may be going through something like this, right? And
yeah, it makes sense to me. We had a guest on a while back, and her son, I'm talking about Jen, she has like literally, it's like a book this thick of all of the doctor's appointments and things that basically anybody would need to know to take care of her son. Should anything happen, right? And it makes sense because I think that if this was like a reoccurring thing, like what else is left, right? Like you're gathering documentation, but you need to also understand it.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, it's like, how do you stop from being that advocate for your child? And it becomes your life, right? And like
it's very hard, especially when the child's young and especially when they're not speaking, right? So only you can really know what's happening. Someone had said, like, I think it was the best doctor for your child, like your child the most. And if something's not right, it's not right. And you should advocate for that.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. And it's a very hard lesson to get through. And it's very hard to understand what that actually means until you're in that situation.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to ask, so do you think like the whole experience brought you and Jenna closer together?
I believe it did. Yeah, we were very connected through that time, I think, because we were both going through quite a traumatic experience at the same time. And so I think we got closer. I think she thinks the same thing. So speaking for her when she's not here. But yeah, I think we've talked about this before where it did feel like we got closer together and we had have a stronger bond together.
Yeah, for sure. So his name is Liam?
Yeah.
What's like his favorite things right now?
He really likes books. Like he likes anything with books, anything like trucks, anything like that. Depending on what we're watching. Sometimes he likes watching the Miss Rachel stuff. He likes watching.
Y'all got Coco Melon?
No, we're not doing the Coco Melon. Oh. We tried that when he was younger and I was like, I can't do it. It's just horrible. Some people
that was
love
all
it.
my son would watch. Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah. Me and my husband would start to develop stories for the parents in Cocomelon just to make it somewhat. Yeah. It's bad. It's bad. For like, he's a wedding DJ and she's like a photographer. Like, we had a whole story because it was just
That's
brutal.
how they met. She was taking pictures for his wedding.
Exactly. Yeah, we had to. We definitely had to come up with it.
Yeah. So he likes going outside lots now, especially since the weather's a lot nicer. It's great. The wintertime was a bit of a pain in the butt. He didn't like getting cold or getting the snow on him. So he would just lose it. But yeah, he loves being outside now.
That's good.
He likes the swings. That's his favorite.
Oh, yeah. I love that. And he's health-wise, he's good, or does he have any?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's got a bit of a speech delay. And so that's something we're working on with him, and we're taking him to speech therapy and stuff like that to get him up to snuff. And he's doing okay with that. And so developing in his own way, but he's getting there.
Good.
I'm glad he had you guys in his back pocket, though.
Yeah.
Like, you guys really advocated for him and made sure that all the right stuff was being done.
Yeah, now we're trying to really make sure that we're keeping on that trend, but definitely some days it feels a lot harder.
It's a different battle now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah, super vulnerable. And thank you for just the lessons that you gave our listeners, because like I said, there's probably somebody that will be listening to this episode and be going through something similar. So,
yeah, that's part of the reason we started ours. We wanted to share a story, and then we really want to resonate with some people that might maybe don't feel like they resonated with anyone really.
Yeah.
That's basically the only goal.
Yeah. And even if our listeners themselves aren't going through it, somebody who is, just knowing, like, I had a friend that went through something similar, but they had 2 premature babies and they had twins that were born, and I probably would have reached out more.
Yeah.
To them, just as a friend, to make sure that
I think that's something important would be to reach out if you know someone's going through something like that. Even if like you can't relate, just reaching out to be someone to talk to or someone to have a quick little vent session or something, I think would help a lot. I can't count a lot of how many people actually reached out to us at all and saw how we were doing, kind of thing. But you do feel alone. You feel isolated when you're in that scenario. And it's hard to not feel that.
Right. Yeah. That's, I think, would have been, I would say, like, just speaking for myself, right? Like, when you don't understand completely what somebody's going through, you shy away from reaching out because you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But just letting them know you're there if they need a vent.
I think that's super important.
And I love the fact that you guys are sharing your journey, right? Normalizing talking about this, because a lot of people will just like curl up in a ball and be like, fuck it, I'm done. And I don't want to talk about this again. But you're doing a huge service out for those parents, and you give them an outlet. And what's sad is this all went down during COVID. My only hope is that for parents that are going through this now, that they've lessened some of those restrictions and things like that. But man, I'm super proud of you guys for doing this and getting it out there. And where can our listeners find you guys?
So we've got our podcast, The Real Life of Parenting. So we tell some of our stories. We've taken a short hiatus at the moment with Jenna's new work schedule. Haven't been finding too much time to do any podcasts lately, but we're probably going to step back up shortly. And then on Facebook is where we're most active. It's the Real Life of Parenting podcast. It's a Facebook page. That's our most active spot where we are. And we're more than happy to have you listen or reach out to us if you need to talk, anything like that. Like, we're pretty happy about it. So yeah, that's the main places basically where you can find out more about us. We do share a lot of our story and a lot more details on our podcast itself.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us and our listeners.
I really appreciate you having me on here and let me speak and share everything. Jenna's taking care of the kids right now, so that's why it's just me at the moment. So,
well, go enjoy your babies and the beautiful weather before it gets too hot.
All right, we plan to.
All right.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm G-Rex.
And I'm Dirty Skittles.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'd love to listen to your feedback.
We can't do this without you guys. It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.